Hello children, I welcome you all to another interesting episode of EduSat. I am sure you would be deriving a lot of benefit from the episodes that have been telecasted for you so far. In this particular episode, we will be talking about verbs, which is a part of English grammar of standard 9th. The episode itself entirely has been divided into part 1 and part 2 for the purpose of your convenience. Now, all of you would have had a basic idea about verbs in your lower classes, but like I always say, we should know more about the concept, and then when I give examples, it will become easier for you to correlate. Now, what is a verb? What is a verb? When somebody will ask you what a verb is, how will you define a verb? What is the definition of a verb? There are dictionaries which provide meanings of the verb, but how will you define verb in simple English language? So, the Learner's Dictionary, it defines verb as a word or a group of words that express an action, an event, a state, and it is defined as a word or phrase that describes that particular action, condition or experience. There are different dictionaries that have defined verbs in various ways. We have the Oxford Learner's Dictionary, we have the Collins Dictionary, and they all provide us with definitions of the verb. Now, let us take for example, a verb is a word such as sing, feel, etc., which is used along with the subject to say what someone or something does or what happens to them, or to give information in particular about them. Now, general classification of verbs according to what they signify. Like in certain episodes previous to that, we have learnt about prepositions and how they can be recognized and classified. Similarly, we will learn about verbs. We will learn about the general classification and how that can be useful for you. Let us see. Now, before we get into a broad classification, let us first have a look at how verbs can be classified generally according to what kind of action they signify. Now, verbs referring to action. Verbs referring to action or action verbs are those that involve the movement of one's body in one way or the other. Some examples of verbs referring to actions are walk, run, talk, sit, read, write, cough, sleep, jump, sing, drink, teach, present, build, break, tow, toss, hug, fight. Now, verbs referring to experiences or feelings. In the previous slide, we were referring to action verbs or verbs referring to actions. Now, we will refer in this particular slide about verbs related to experiences and feelings. These are the verbs that refer to something that you can feel or experience and do not necessarily involve movement of any kind. Some examples of verbs which relate to experiences and feelings are given below. Always keep a copy and pencil handy with you so that when I give examples of a particular segment, you will be able to note down important points for the purpose of your examination. Look at these verbs: love, hate, envy, believe. Now, let us look at these examples: trust, feel, entrust, experience, care, cherish, sense, know, recognize, understand, comprehend, like, need, adore, loathe, appreciate. These were the verbs that were referring to experiences and feelings. Prior to that, we discussed verbs referring to action. In the second slide, we discussed about verbs related to experience and feelings, and in this particular slide, we will discuss about verbs referring to a state or condition. So, what are these? These verbs are those that refer to situations or the state of being. All forms of to be verbs belong to this category. Some examples of verbs referring to a state or condition are as follows: am, is, are, was, were, have, has, will be, appear, seem, become, been, being, etc. Now, the various types of verbs with examples. Verbs can be classified into numerous types according to their function or role within a particular sentence or context. Let us look into the various types of words and some examples of each type of verb. What do you mean by auxiliary verbs or helping verbs? Auxiliary verbs or helping verbs, as the name suggests, is a verb that is used to help another verb sound sensible and meaningful. It is used to change the other verb's tense, mood or voice. So, every time an auxiliary verb is used, you always have one more verb which acts as the main verb in that particular sentence. So, what are the types of auxiliary verbs? Am, is, are, was, were, have, has, do, will, can. Now, one point you have to take care of when you use auxiliary verbs is that you should conjugate or combine the auxiliary verb correctly according to the tense form of a sentence. And another specific point that you need to remember about auxiliary verbs is that they can itself be used as the main verb in certain cases. Also, there are verbs called as modal verbs that can be used as helping verbs. Auxiliary verbs can be used as a helping verb. Also, there are modal verbs that can also be used as helping verbs. We defined auxiliary verbs in the previous slide. Let us see how we define modal verbs. What is a modal verb? Modal verbs are those verbs that are used to denote possibility, probability, capability or necessity of something happening around us. Modal verbs, unlike other auxiliary verbs, cannot be used as a main verb within the sentence. Now, look at the example. I will give you a few examples of how these modal verbs can be used. Can, could, will, would, may, might, should, must, ought to. Now, phrasal verbs. What are phrasal verbs? Phrasal verbs will include phrases that are formed by combining two or more parts of a speech that perform the same function within a verb in a sentence, and in most cases a phrasal verb results from the combination of a verb along with a preposition. In the previous episodes of EduSat, you have been taught as to how to use a preposition in combination with so many things. So, now we see that how prepositions can be used in combination with a verb, resulting in the formation of a phrasal verb. Now, what are some of the examples of phrasal verbs? Look at these. Go by, lay off, log in, get off, run out, go all out. Think through, fed up, taken aback, act on, back away, back up, look up. Now, we come to the next segment, which is a linking verb. We learnt about action verbs, we learnt about helping verbs, we learnt about auxiliary verbs, modal verbs, phrasal verbs. Now, we come on to linking verbs. A linking verb, just like the name is suggesting, is a type of a verb that is used to link the subjects in a sentence to the other parts of the sentence so that it becomes meaningful as a whole. It connects the subject to the object, an adjective and even to a prepositional phrase. All to be forms of verbs and verbs like seem and become can act as linking verbs. Now, let us have a look at the following examples to understand how verbs perform the role of a linking verb in sentences. Look at the first example. connecting nouns to other nouns in a sentence. Danny is my brother. What happens in this sentence? In the above example, the verb is used to connect the subject Danny. So, who is the subject here? Danny as the brother of the speaker. In this sentence, the word Danny and brother are used to refer to the same person. In the second example, connecting a noun to a prepositional phrase within a sentence, how do we do that? The children were in the park. In example 2, the verb were is used to connect the subject. So, who is the subject in this particular point? We have the children. We have the children who act as subjects to the prepositional phrase in the park. So, here we see how it is used for connecting a noun to a prepositional phrase within a sentence. In the third example, connecting a noun or a subject to an adjective. So, what do we see here? Your presentation of the life cycle of silkworm was excellent. Look at this particular sentence. In the above example, the verb was is used to link it to the subject. Your presentation of the life cycle of the silkworm to the adjective, which in this case is excellent. Now, example 4, connecting the subject or the noun to the predicate using seem and become. This book on a treasure hunt seems interesting. In this particular sentence, the subject is the book on a treasure hunt, which is connected to the adjective interesting, and what is the linking verb in question? It is seem. Similarly, the students became bored after 2 continuous hours of classes and were not ready to take another hour of class without a break in between. So, look at this particular subject. In the above sentence, the subject, the students, have been linked to the rest of the sentence with the linking verb, which is became. Now, let us categorize verbs into different categories. They can be divided into different categories according to the behavior or in the context with which they are used. So, what are the categories? We have regular and irregular verbs. What are those? As we can see, verbs are used to denote actions. We have seen that in the previous slides, and they can be used in a different form as to indicate when the subject in a sentence is carrying out a specific action. A regular verb can be conjugated to show if the action takes place in the past or if the action is taking place at the current moment or if the action is continuous in nature. In most cases, the past form of the verb is formed by adding a particular word ed to the root verb for regular verbs. On the other hand, we see other verbs that do not follow these rules. These rules conform to regular verbs. So, what happens in irregular verbs? They are verbs that do not follow these principles and they have their own unique forms. If you are wondering how we will get to know about these irregular verbs, read the article on irregular verbs. Now, have a look at the examples given below. Dilip searched for his white shirt in this cupboard, but he did not find it. Here the root verb is search. You can read the entire para or the article for your reference, but it will be better if you follow the examples sincerely, because only when you follow the examples and practice yourselves, you will be able to grasp the concept thoroughly. Now, did you find the book you were looking for? This is another example that helps you understand the concept of regular and irregular verbs. Now, children, moving on to the next slide, we have in the examples, the verb searched is the part form of the regular form, past form of the regular verb search, and by adding an ed of the verb for looking, it indicates a continuous form of the regular verb look by adding an ing to the end of the root verb. So, first you have to identify the root verb and then the addition of words which will help you to identify the irregular verb in question. Selena read the book on the evolution of life on earth. Vineet found the keys that went missing yesterday. In the above examples, the verb read stays the same in the past form, and when used as a past participle, found is the past form of the root verb find. Now, transitive verbs and intransitive verbs. These are something you just need for your knowledge to understand verbs better. But what are those? Transitive and intransitive forms of words, they are used to denote how a particular verb acts when used in a direct object and an indirect object. Now, as usual, I will give you examples to explain the meaning of the above. Vincent gave a box of chocolates to his brother. Indirect object, which is the indirect object in this particular sentence? His brother. Direct object will be a box of chocolates. Gary passed the water bottle to Kevin, who was sitting in the first row. Here the indirect object, who is the indirect object in this particular sentence? It is Kevin, and the direct object becomes the water bottle. Now, the little girl ran around the park for 2 hours. Francie walked to school every day. My mom cleaned the house today. Now, look at the direct object. What is the direct object in this particular sentence? The house, obviously. Seema did not like the movie. Direct object is the movie. In the above examples, the verbs gave and passed in the first two sentences are seen to take a direct object and an indirect object, whereas the verbs ran and walked do not take any object at all. In the last two sentences, the verbs clean and did not like take a direct object into account, and no indirect object has been cited in these examples. Moving on to the next slide. Verbs that can take a direct object alone, they are called as transitive verbs, and those verbs that do not take either a direct object or an indirect object, they are referred to as intransitive verbs. There is another category of verbs that take both the direct object and the indirect object into account. They are called as ditransitive verbs. Always remember, when it comes to English grammar, you become thorough only by way of examples. You will lay special emphasis on what kind of verbs? Action verbs, phrasal verbs, modal verbs, auxiliary verbs. These are the things that you need to focus upon. Now, I have given you examples of each kind. What you need to do that while you are watching the program, you need to have your textbooks handy, so that as I give you examples, you can compare them with those given in your text, note down the examples which you find important, and then when you read for the purpose of examination, it will help you to clarify your concept. As it is, I have defined the different kind of verbs. You do not need to remember the full definition, but you can just write the highlights or the major points of each kind of verb, so that while you understand the examples, when you look at the definition on top, it will help you understand. The last slide, particularly about transitive, intransitive and ditransitive verbs, this is just for the knowledge of you children, so that when you start constructing your own sentences using verbs, and when you do your grammatical exercises that have been given in your text, you will know what to insert where. That is a very important part of English grammar. You have to know what to insert where. Now, I have given you so many examples, but in these different categories of verbs that I am describing, you will always know, you will always want to remember what a regular verb is. For that, I have given you examples also, but always remember what a regular verb is. Just for your recap, a regular verb can be conjugated to show if the action takes place in the past or if the action is taking place at that specific moment. Another important definition or another important aspect that you need to remember is how you will connect a particular verb to a particular part of speech in a sentence by linking verbs. Linking verbs also are very important in this regard. So, in this particular phase you have to know which is the subject, which is the object, which is the adjective and which is the prepositional phrase. Prepositions have been taught to you in previous EduSat programs. If at all you are not clear about the concept of prepositions, I would suggest you look at all the EduSat programs that have been conducted on prepositions. You will have a fair idea, and then you can link accordingly. Now, phrasal verbs often are something which are considered important because they come for examination purpose. So, you need to remember what they are and how you can use them in combination. So, what is a phrasal verb? These are just quick highlights. I want you to remember the highlights. What are phrasal verbs? These include phrases which are formed by combining two or more parts of a speech that perform a particular function, okay, as a word within the sentence. So, this is an example of a phrasal verb. In most cases, phrasal verb result from a combination of a verb along with a preposition. Now, children, in phrasal verbs, these are certain words that are used very often. If you have not noted down these particular words, I would suggest to you, please note them down so that it becomes easier for you to interlink the sentence. Go by, lay off, log in, get off, run out, go all out, think through, fed up, taken aback, act on, back away, back up, look up. And something I want all of you to remember is I have not chosen all examples from the textbook that has been recommended for you. I have also incorporated certain examples of my own. This helps you to understand how a particular thing can be used differently. It will help you to understand what the concept of a verb is and how they can be used in a grammatically correct way. Yes, so that will help you understand the concept better also. Now, another thing is something that you need to remember is modal verbs, phrasal verbs. These are also the concepts that you need to remember. Auxiliary and helping verbs, how they are used in combination with certain sentences. You should note down the examples and then you should see where actually you are facing problems. I would suggest once you identify the area of problems, come back to these slides, refer to these slides. It will help you clarify your concept and again go through the exercises in your book. If you do all of these thoroughly, I am very sure that you will have a very good understanding about verbs. So, children, another thing I would like to suggest, you would be having your examinations very soon. So, your test papers would be available in the market also. Complete or practice as many chapters as you can when it comes to English grammar. That will help you to clarify your concept and help to understand the things in a better way. So, we will talk more about verbs in the next part. I am sure that by now you would be having a clear concept about the different categories of verbs and how they are used differently. We will do more when we switch on to part 2 of verbs. Thank you.